All right. Welcome everyone to this Tuesday, August 6, 2024 Finance Agenda meeting. At this point, I will yield the floor to Chairman Westcott.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome everyone. On our agenda this evening, we'll take items 1 and 1A. Number 1 is the appropriation in the amount of $4,616,970. 1A explains it. It's consideration of a resolution that would authorize the mayor and city clerk treasurer to enter into an agreement with Crafton and Toll Associates for the engineering services and for other purposes. This is in regard to the RAISE grant agreement. What is the will of the Finance Committee regarding items number 1 and 1A?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we send items 1 and 1A to the full council with a recommendation of due pass.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on items number 1 and 1A?
Is this just the first phase of the project?
Yeah,
And
this,
continuing phases will begin.
As the time progresses, yes, this is for engineering services and beginning of land acquisition services.
Cool. Do we
Okay.
have a map of said land acquisition that we can share with the public, that we can say, hey, look forward to seeing X, Y, Z?
We have a draft we can present.
you want?
Would love to see that.
I get one question. And this also for item 2. So when we come back on next Thursday, and this is before the full council, will we have full numbers on 1 and 2 on the agenda?
Yes, and we have that paperwork here
Oh,
that was
okay. I'm
emailed out
sorry.
to us this afternoon. And my
I just-
apologies for not providing you with a paper copy there in front of you here this evening, but, okay.
Do we have a paper copy? If it's in the email, then we're fine. Then the second question was kind of along the lines of what Councilmember George asked. Would it be possible at some point in time to plan on maybe it may not be time now, but some sort of like public event for that RAISE grant so that we can get folks excited about it? You know.
Absolutely, yes, sir. The RAISE grant, we're very excited about, city and city staff, and we definitely want the public to enjoy that with us through these, the progress that we're going to move forward with our consultants. Part of the contract is to have public engagement and involvement on that and open house type events. So as we progress, this is the first stage, moving it forward. And this request is to approve this project with, as we move forward with FHWA. They will also have to concur or contingent on their approval to move forward. So this is a step forward, but we will not request execution of the contract until we have FHWA approval of it.
Awesome.
The $4 million that
Yes,
we
sir.
approved on Thursday, that's all money that's coming back to us.
Out of the revenue stream, there is approximately, and Mr. Westcott has the exact numbers, but out of the grant, approximately just under $3 million is reimbursable from the grant.
Right.
The differential between there is going to be funded out of the current sales tax funding in moving forward. Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments on 1 and 1A? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 and 2A. Number 2 is actually a line item transfer in the amount of $90,000. And number 2A is a consideration of a resolution that would authorize the mayor and city clerk treasurer to enter into agreement with Half Associates Incorporated for engineering services and for other purposes. What is the will of the committee regarding 2 and 2A?
Mr. Chairman, I move items 2 and 2A be forwarded to the full council with a recommendation of due pass.
Okay. Second. Any discussion on 2 and 2A? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is consideration of a resolution that would authorize the mayor and city clerk treasurer to enter into an agreement with AF&G LLC for paint striping services for the annual striping maintenance project for the city. What is the will of the committee on number 3?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we send item 3 to the full council with the recommendation of due pass.
Okay. Second by Mr. George. Any discussion on number 3? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4 is consideration of an ordinance that would amend the city code for offenses involving public safety, health, and welfare. Article number 4, adopted by ordinance number 2477 by adding a new chapter, Chapter 5, regulating the hours of operations for all city parks and for other purposes, sponsored by the city attorney. What is the will of the Finance Committee regarding item number 4?
Move that we send item number 4 to the full council with recommendation of approval.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Mr. Keller. Any discussion on item number 4?
What are the parameters that we are going to be holding the city parks, like, open and close?
It's the same that the two ordinances before, it's just codified into one. The two ordinances are 1319 and 1541, and they set the original park hours, and they're not changing. They're just being found in the code.
So nothing gonna be different.
That's correct.
Any further discussion on item number 4? Thank you, Mr. Smith. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. It has been requested that item number 5 be removed from the agenda, and I so move.
Second.
Second. Is that discussable?
I think it is, yeah.
Any discussion on removing that?
Just to clarify why we've removed that, this is a piece of property that we own on Elmira, and we were going to enter into a timber contract to log that. We're going to put the brakes on that just for a second to make sure that we don't have to do any environmental on that. Normally, you would not have to, but at this point in time, we're actually, Kelly Dinkle, our grant administrator, and Megan Selman are working for a grant with Arkansas Economic Development, I believe. And so we're trying to get that site certified, so we don't want to cause any problems on that certification. So we may come back next week, or we may come back in September, but we just want to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row before we do anything. So thank you. I just want to explain that.
All those in favor of removing item number 5 from the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is consideration for approval for the stipend for the contract administrator position sponsored by the Personnel Committee. I yield the floor to the chairman of the Personnel Committee, Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an item that we discovered is a position that we had. It kind of went away or got forgotten about. We're bringing it back to administer the solid waste contract, and the mayor will choose a person in the city to do that position. And again, as you can see, there is a stipend.
Ms. Rogers, will there be an appropriation on next Thursday's finance for this, or is that what we discussed? So there'll be an appropriation.
Yeah, we recommended to the finance committee to
Okay.
for the appropriation.
So we'll have an appropriation on next Thursday finance. Yes.
Okay.
I move that we forward item 6 to the full council for approval.
Second.
Second by Mr. Keller. Any other discussion on number 6? That stipend amount is going to be what?
$8,000, if I remember correctly, which will actually, it will be a little bit more because you will have to take into consideration the benefits that are paid
Right,
with that. So
right, right.
8,000 will be the actual number plus,
Extras.
I think it's
Okay.
34, 40%. I can't remember what it is on top of that. So
Thank you. All those in favor of forwarding item number 6 say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 is discussion concerning yard sales and signage in residential neighborhoods, sponsored by the mayor. Mayor, I yield the floor to you.
Mr. Olson, Mr. Olson had asked us to cite an individual that consistently has things for sale in their front yard in a residential neighborhood, and we sought out the ordinance and looked, and it did not necessarily clearly state that we could cite this gentleman. And we spoke with Judge McCall, and he said that he didn't see it that way. So if we actually had sent it to him, it would not have necessarily been something that's enforceable. So I was going to bring this to you guys to look at and see if there was anything that you wanted to change. I don't personally have anything. Basically, there's an individual that has something constantly for sale in their front yard with a sign beside it. I mean, just almost 365 days a year in a residential area. If you guys, you're the ones that would make the change in the ordinance, and so I wanted to bring that to you for discussion.
Well, not to put you on the spot necessarily, but I will. Have you had an opportunity, or let me rephrase it. If you've personally not had an opportunity to meet with this individual face to face, I would recommend such a meeting, because sometimes things can happen in a face-to-face meeting between adults that in a more legal fashion can cause heartburn and hardship and a whole lot of resistance.
Our code enforcement has requested that they do not continue to do this. They have spoke with them on multiple times. We've had several conversations with, Perry has had multiple conversations with them about this.
I meant you personally.
Okay, that's fine. And if that's how, if you'd like me to pursue that, I would be happy to do that.
Is there noise or is
No, there's
there
no noise. There's no noise.
traffic impediment? Is there some issue other than we just don't like to see the for sale sign in the yard?
Well, there's for sale sign and there's items. There's multiple items for sale in the front yard.
How do they need to acquire a business license? Is there some
I don't know.
How
that-
is this
Ms.
different
John Dahl, will
than-
you approach the?
someone running an Etsy shop from their house?
Well, that's
What kind of items?
what
What kind of items?
lawnmowers. There are multiple lawnmowers that are sitting at the curb or at the sidewalk.
So in order to do sales from a residential neighborhood, you would need to obtain a business license. And in this case, the business license has specifications specifically regarding yard sales. And yard sales are not something that you need a business license for, but you're limited to 3 times a year for only 3 days. And so there's definitely this little bit of a catch there. We cannot issue him a business license because of what he's doing, but then he's exceeded what is allowable by the yard sale.
Like because of the work that is being done and sales, you can't issue a business license? There's not a category for his type of business?
The only category in a residential zone is a home office. And this isn't a home office, it's
Yeah.
a retail.
It's a special circumstance.
It's a retail thing, so then we're in, yes.
Yes.
So
It's
if,
getting in some gray areas here.
And that's why I'm bringing it for discussion. And
Right.
I'll reach out and like Mr. Westcott recommended, just see what we can have a conversation with the gentleman. So
if someone
yeah.
has a yard sale more than the total of 9 days, 3 days, 3 different times in a year, what happens to that person? So when I have my 4th yard sale, what happens if it's turned into code enforcement?
Well, code enforcement, if it's brought up to their attention, would go out and talk to the individual, which is what has happened here. They have
Okay.
talked to this individual multiple times and have pointed out what the regulations are. And most people have been, I didn't know the regulations. We haven't run into where it's just consistently been.
Well, I understand. So like you guys come out to me on my 4th one, and then the next weekend I have my 5th one for the year. What is code enforcement going to do? Are you guys going to come and ticket me or give me a fine for having more than 3 yard sales in a year?
So typically on violations, the process is that we go and we give you a verbal notice, and then we would give you a written notice before it gets to that level of violation. Based on the way the regulations are worded, it doesn't sound like there is the opportunity to really issue him a ticket, if I'm understanding the regulations correctly.
So so is he going to say, like, I'm running this as a yard sale, so, or is he just going to say he's running a business out of his home, retail business out of his home, which isn't allowed? I still don't understand. What's the ordinance question that is keeping us from being able to enforce what's on the books?
Because it doesn't fit in as a yard sale. It's not a yard sale. It's not classified in the ordinance, from my understanding.
Okay,
So
so
I didn't
then-
know
As
if
it is
somebody
right now,
wanted to
it's
change
retail.
something. I'm just bringing it to you.
No,
because if
no.
you want- And to answer your question, I think, yes, according to this ordinance, they could write a ticket on the fourth yard sale, but I don't think that's normally not our intention, but
No,
normally it's, and I don't think, we don't have that situation come up to where people are saying, hey, this person's having too much of a yard sale. I think it's just in the area it is, some of the people driving there on a regular basis have complained that there's lawnmowers sitting on at that sidewalk every day of the year. Well, not every day of the year, because I don't think they're there in the wintertime probably. But they are.
So
Okay,
then-
so they are. So okay, I don't know.
So then this is what I'm having trouble understanding as far as, so it doesn't classify as a yard sale. So what's on the books for a yard sale wouldn't apply.
That's my
But
understanding.
but as was stated, he's running a retail business from a residential area, which isn't allowed.
Okay.
So then why, I'm still trying to figure out
I don't know that- I
what
don't-
on the books is keeping us from
I don't
being
know.
able-
I guess Mr. Whitby could ask Mr.
Judge McCall. Judge.
Judge McCall if that would hold up. I don't know if he asked him that. I think he approached it from the yard sale standpoint. So we'll have some conversation. Nothing that needs to be decided. Mr. Smith, do you have any counsel here? Not at the moment. Okay. All right.
Well, it may well be that a gentle conversation on your part may result in something as simple as the mowers are in the back and a little pleasant sign saying mowers for sale are in front, which nobody can find fault with. There's certainly got to be an easy solution which does not result in changing the law that affects 30,000 men, women, and children.
Agreed.
I
Agreed.
would-
That's
I
what I
would
was trying
put-
to figure out. Like, I don't understand, like, what part of the code, like, okay, so it's not a yard sale, well, then it's running a business. Then we have something on the books already to deal with a retail business being ran in a residential area.
I would like to posit that we do as much as we can to be in good relationship with our citizens that aren't breaking laws.
100%.
You know,
And
if we-
I'm bringing this to you
Yeah.
because it was brought to me from a councilman and other people, and so I'm bringing it to you. So I think, and I'm fine moving forward with the way that we've talked.
No, I agree.
And if there are
I'm
any
just-
updates needed, I can give you guys
And if we
updates.
need to, at some level,
Thanks.
you know, this is the type of business that you run out of your home, or this is the, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like,
No, and if
do
we need to
update that?
tighten code up,
Because I know
or
there
if
are
we need
people
to
that run
clarify things.
Etsy and Amazon shippers and all those, like those types of businesses exist in our city.
100%.
Out of people's homes.
Yes.
100%.
So
I
if we-
agree with you.
you know,
What I'm
I'm a-
saying, I'm saying I
Yeah.
agree with Mr. Westcott, and I think
Yeah.
the sentiment that you're saying there as well is like, I don't see why existing code.
If the problem
wouldn't-
is
it
the
wouldn't
lawnmowers
exist.
look ugly when I drive down the road, well, I know a couple other places that look ugly when I drive down the road too. So let's, yeah.
I just don't want to go and just change laws just for one specific thing,
Right.
especially if things on the book, if it gets to that point, and I'm hoping a conversation
Okay.
will handle it.
Agreed.
But I don't
All right. Well,
necessarily
we'll move
see
forward
where
and
that
we'll move
gray
forward
area
with that then.
exists.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Westcott.
Moving to item number 8 is discussion of Perry Creek easement and the property acquisition sponsored by Glenn Newman, our city engineer. Mr. Newman, I yield the floor to you.
Thank you. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read. I've given a brief in the council report on our project. Just a little bit of background. As you may be aware, this project started many years ago, Prairie Creek, widening for flood control in the downtown area. And during the last year or so, we have been in the process of acquiring easements along the project in this area, and we've come to the last parcels without commitment on the project. These two are being asked to be evaluated. We have gone through the process with every property owner the same way. We have an appraisal performed, certified appraisal. This is through the Uniform Act, which requires a very high-level appraisal, and it is also being vetted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers before we make any offer letters. We've come to two parcels where it's being represented by the same property owner and is also owner on the properties, and they have countered our offer fair amount higher. I've discussed with the city attorney and the mayor. We evaluated what the cost would be if we did go to court and condemnation with our professional appraiser to be present to review their counter and sit through the court cases. At that time, we offered that higher number, which would offset that. And through the same process, we received an additional counter that's above what we have considered that we could substantiate on the project. It's my understanding that the property owner is in process of obtaining independent appraisal. We've been, I don't have the exact date, but this has been ongoing for a few months through the process. And once we receive their appraisal, we would evaluate that information and consider that as a counter at that point. Project in general, time is of the essence to meet the Corps of Engineers schedule. The commitment the city has to the Corps is by September 16th to have all land acquisitions in place. So we're on track for that with this exception. A year or so ago, we came to the council and requested eminent domain proceedings to be acceptable, and we have a resolution on board if necessary for that route. But before we went to that discussion or went to that item, we were negotiating in good faith with these counters and such. And I can get more specific in details, and I'd like Mr. Smith the opportunity to expand a little bit, kind of where we need to go. But that's why we're here today, is to discuss the will of the council on negotiation moving forward, what flexibility we have to continue to negotiate on this project. And I'll be happy to go in any specific detail and questions. I believe if y'all had the opportunity in the packet, have survey information, easement in this general vicinity. It's widening the channel. One parcel out of the two, these are being represented together. We're acquiring the easement and repairing the parking lot and reestablishing the area usable space for that. Second, the other side, we're basically condemning some property, or not condemning, I apologize, raising a couple structures to widen the channel, and then flattening that out and stabilizing that side as earthen channel in there. And so just wanted to start the conversation today and see the will on which direction. I know Mr. Smith and I have discussed. We're unfortunately, we don't have their appraisal in hand to give you a solid number for our possible final counter at this time, but we have offered above what the appraisal is, just what we would expect we would have in court cost for the city over the next couple year period whenever it come to court.
I may have misunderstood, but did you say we made an offer, they countered with a higher offer, and then we accepted that?
No, sir,
higher?
we never accepted their offer. They
Or not, maybe
offered
accepted,
for,
they came back again
they
with a
countered for
second?
about 50% more than our offer, and then we went back in our position and evaluated what we believed we would expend in court.
Okay.
And we raised approximately $25,000 for the expected court costs and countered that at that point there. And from that point, they've countered again. We're still
So there was
$40,000
second count.
between.
That's what I was, they
Yes, sir.
countered again?
Yes, sir.
After, okay.
Yes, sir. Their request, yes, there's 390 is what they're requesting. Yes, sir. There is some iterative points in between the original offer. We were offering funds on the track 227 as it's described in the report to just obtain easements. There was a small triangular piece that was a temporary easement that we were looking at for the Prairie Creek project solely, but looking at future projects that the city has in motion, that small triangle would be reapproached in a couple of years to utilize the same property for another function. So we offered the entire valuation of that property with our counter offer that we came back. That plus the expected court cost and appraisal fees and all those others was the counter that we came back at the 351. And so that's where that position was on that location. Well, I am not a negotiator. That's why I've asked Mr. Smith to assist in this. I'm not an appraiser. As my position, I have authority based on previous resolutions and such to offer the amount that the appraised value is. That's my authority at this point. And this is, I'm learning through this process with guidance of city attorney on how much that we, as to utilize taxpayer funds. And where we are at this point, I believe we're very close with what we expect our fees will be at a later date, so that's why we offered the counter. Above that, I'm uncomfortable making a recommendation with you without their appraisal in hand on what the value settlement should be, and I think Mr. Smith may be able to contribute to this.
Yeah, basically, the last counter to theirs was adding up direct cost, taking this to trial, and which could be substantiated based upon our appraiser and also some additional property that we were going to take in the counter based on the square footage that our appraiser gave us. Anything over that level, it comes down to what does the council feel comfortable in allowing us to settle on behalf of the city the nuisance of this one last deal. And want to make sure, because I was asked by Mr. Westcott, we do time is of the essence. By next month, we have to have something done.
Yes, sir. On our normal scheduled meetings, this is the council meeting that we need direction, because if we meet the requirement commitment to the Corps of September 16th, we should have land. If whatever method, if we can purchase, then we have closing timing and to work through a closing attorney. If it is another method, I believe that can happen within a week or two. So we have to have a little buffer to meet that deadline.
Would we be legally in any issue if we met their offer?
It would come down to just getting the what we call the nuisance of going through litigation, just that extra, because it's not only just direct paying of the appraiser, but you're tying up personnel for a day or 2 days as well, and so.
And the time frame also.
Right.
No, wait a minute. That would be paying taxpayer dollars
Right.
based on someone's ability to cause a nuisance.
Yes.
And we don't want to do that.
That's what I'm asking. Is there some issue?
There isn't what we traditionally have done is the appraised value has weighed very, very heavily on what we would pay. And we have exercised discretion over the years and have paid above and beyond that appraised value occasionally, but not very much above it. In this case, one can see the wisdom in the way that you've calculated the appraised value and our estimated legal fees should we choose to take an alternate route to obtain what we need to obtain, recognizing that we could use the eminent domain route and not pay anything, like this. So, but we want to do the right thing for everybody involved, but we in no way, shape, or form want the general public to be taken advantage of,
Right.
or to pay somebody more based on their ability to be vocal, right?
Yeah, we don't
So-
want to get ramrodded into some deal just because we're the
I'm not
city.
exactly sure what we need from the Finance Committee at this point, but I would hope that whatever paperwork is necessary would be made available to us at your earliest convenience, reflecting the numbers that you have recommended, which is the appraised value and the estimated cost of the legal fees should we have to go some other route, which I think is more than fair.
Yes, sir. And do you feel, or you want us to entertain the appraisal that we do not have in hand yet from the property owner? We don't have that
I don't see how we
information
could
presented to you at
entertain
this
something
time.
we don't have in hand and could look at. At this point, recognizing the urgency in time or the time frame, I would assume we would move forward with the hard copies that we have right now.
And I feel that
And I trust your
300
judgment. Why would we not?
The $351,000, which includes court costs of all of the things that you discussed
Yep.
earlier, I just feel like that should be enough.
So they're asking for 390, and the 351 is our offer of 310 plus what we think it's going to cost. And they said no?
Yes, they've said no.
Okay.
So if I understand the process, if we have, it sounds like the concurrence would be the ability to formalize or ratify, if they accepted this offer through council, that we would have that permission. If they do not choose to accept this, then that would basically end the negotiations, and we would have to go through the other route. Mr. Smith, am I understanding the direction?
Yes, and I think there's a misconception here by some of the council that, domain's going to happen, and they're going to have their day in court, and they can present evidence, including this appraisal they're going to have to get, in my opinion, at some point, and they are getting it now, and that will come into evidence, and a jury will make the ultimate decision years down the road as to the final value of what the city should pay, and it could be more, and it could be less. That's the great thing about our system. So it's not that it's just going to be done at a later date where it's going to take their land. There's going to be a reckoning of the city of how much we're going to pay. And the ease of knowing what you're going to pay now versus the unease 2 or 3 years down the road, the uncertainty of it, that's what we're asking for guidance on. But if y'all feel as though this is the limit and you don't care what happens 2 or 3 years down the road, we'll carry that out too.
And what do you recommend?
I would like to see what their appraisal, which is what I've kind of lit a fire under their attorney to get us, and I think they are now trying to get one ASAP. Good. And that'll at least give us a reference point to whether we know, can we meet, if it's reasonable, can we meet in the middle, or if it's unreasonable and we just have to go to court. Because they come back with a totally unreasonable number, then I don't see, unless our appraiser comes back and says, well, I didn't really see it that way, and starts waffling on his appraisal, then we have to go to court, and a jury will make a decision.
Do we think we can have that by Thursday of next week, possibly?
It's not in my hands. I don't know who they're
Okay.
using. I talked to his attorney today and emphasized we have a deadline, and he's
Okay.
well aware of it.
Okay. So do we want to just,
So if we end up having to go the route of going to court, and as indicated by the city attorney, this could take a couple of years, what does this do to the project as a whole?
My appreciation is, if we do go to court, the funds based on our appraisal will be set to the court, so we'll pay that to the court in filing fees, and then we will be able to, as soon as we receive the court order, we would be able to take possession of the property and the project moves forward. It does not impact the project on that level. Mr. Smith, you're definitely the expert in this field.
Well, no,
Based-
I'm talking about, you were saying that there was a September date that this needed to be done by for this phase of the Prairie Creek project. But we're looking at, if we end up having to go to court, it could be a couple years in
when
court.
when you go to
We-
condemnation, it's
will-
done. We have the property, and then
When I file a complaint,
And then-
then what happens is there's an order of possession, which I will also have the judge sign, because we will write in and deposit the registry of the circuit clerk, the court, the estimated for the 2 pieces of property.
Okay,
And we
so-
will immediately get possession the value of the property will be litigated 1 to 2 years out.
Okay, so the haggling for a couple years is just over what the ultimate amount's going to be. We still get it, and it's not, okay, great. Thank you for explaining it for the non-lawyers. I appreciate it.
Is there any other discussion on item number 8? Thank you, Mr. Newman.
Yes, sir.
If we have information that we can use to make this decision by Thursday, can you make sure we have it to Gina so that we can put it on?
Yes, sir. I mean, this is a discussion item, so at this point, and I'll discuss with Mr. Smith more, if there's an item that we need to specifically put on the agenda. Right now, it was guidance and information. We're still diligently trying to work out this issue, and the timing is the critical factor, is what we're doing. But absolutely, as more information is provided, we'll provide that to you also, and make a recommendation based off whatever different additional information we receive.
As long as we have by the end of this project a river that we can kayak through the middle of downtown, I'm totally cool.
Thank you, Mr.
Won't get it
Newman,
in
very much.
August, but yes, sir.
Moving to item number 9 is consideration of a resolution that would authorize the mayor and city clerk treasurer to enter into an agreement with CARDS, C-A-R-D-S, River Valley Incorporated for residential solid waste services as defined by the city solid waste ordinance of the city. Sponsored by the mayor. What is the will of the finance committee regarding item number 9?
Mr. Chairman, I move item number 9 be moved to the full council with the recommendation of due pass.
Nice. Second by Mr. George. Any discussion on item number 9?
Where are we in the talks with Waste Management as far as exiting that contract? I know that originally it was 60 days, and we're trying to talk to, down to 30 days? And then, so I just don't know where we are in that.
Who's that question for?
Anyone who can answer it.
I'm sorry, Ms. Skelton was speaking. Say one more time, where are we at as
Where
far
are we
as
at and trying to, we were
acquire?
trying to exit the
Okay,
contract
okay,
with
all right.
Waste Management.
Okay, so what you're forwarding to council right now is the contract that will start in January 1 of 2025. That is the contract that you're forwarding. I think there's still some negotiations that are going to have to be done between CARDS and Waste Management on the exit strategy. So there's still some talks there that are going to be had.
Okay, but as I understood it when we had our working session, one of the sticking points was in our current contract, it was a 60-day exit, but we were trying to work with Waste Management to get that turned into a 30-day exit, and I don't know where we are in those talks.
You want me to speak or do you want to?
Or was I misunderstanding it when we met?
I've just spoken with CARDS, and I've proposed an assumption. I've sent it to them to look at. I have not had any conversation with management on the matter, but CARDS could either assume the contract as is, take over, or with agreement with Waste Management, or the city would look at trying to negotiate with the management to do something shorter than the 60 days required to give notice to terminate for convenience. I have not spoken to Waste Management on anything on that.
Mr. Tarpley, you guys have had some conversation. I know you've probably spoke with Anthony. How high up has he been able to, I haven't confirmed with him on how high up he's been able to go to, because, I mean, he's not that decision maker.
Right, but he's spoken to the decision maker, but they're wanting details that, we need to present back,
Okay.
and it'll probably involve the city.
Okay, so can you and I meet
Exactly.
tomorrow maybe and kind of figure out what kind of details he needs?
That sounds good.
If you can do that, so you and I can possibly,
They're willing to try to pursue this without any kind of backlash or canceling the contract, so to speak,
okay, so,
is our,
We
under-
just-
is our understanding from our talks with them.
can we meet at 10 a.m. tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll update you, council, after meeting with him, if that's okay.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion on number 9? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10, and the final thing on this agenda, is discussion about how the city could incentivize wage growth, sponsored by Councilmember Seth Bradley, and to you I yield the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. About 2 or 3 months ago, I opened the floor up about, on a discussion about what the city could do, what the city's options were as far as encouraging companies not only to come here, but to offer their workers more competitive wages. And so basically to bring more equity in our local economy as far as, if you're going to go to work, you can get a job in which you're not stuck working minimum wage or something close to minimum wage for the next several years. And it's nothing against businesses that pay at that rate. I just want to I want us to be able to offer some sort of positive incentive to businesses so that people can go to work and have more money in their pocket. So between then and now, I did a little bit of research. I know Arkansas has the Local Job Creation, Job Expansion, and Economic Development Act, which was passed in 2017. I'll be happy to send the paperwork to everybody. But basically, what that bill did was it provides funding to cities. Basically, it sets aside money in the state budget to be allocated to cities and other localities for economic development. So there is an option that cities have with which to encourage economic growth. The only thing is there's a lot of extra conditions that if we're going to take money from the state for any kind of economic development on the local level, there's a lot of extra provisions that we have to include, including a recapture provision in which the business has to provide an accounting each year, and if the accounting is insufficient, then the business must return the money back to the city, which I don't think is unreasonable. I don't want to move forward creating a new incentive on the city level completely handled by the city government and it become overly burdensome or too complicated. Another approach is to work with what we have, which is we've got one option is the pilot incentive. The pilot program was created by the state of Arkansas, in which the cities are permitted to enter into agreements with companies on a case-by-case basis. And basically the company says, I want to come to your town, I want to use this land that's currently owned by the city. And the city says, okay, if you pay 35% of what the property tax would be on that property, then you can come here. Now, of course, it's case by case, so there's no hard line criteria for who we can accept and who we say, no, we're not going to do this with you. This approach was utilized to bring in AmeriCold back in, I believe, 2019. So there are approaches that exist to encourage companies to come here. I don't know if the pilot agreement can be used to encourage businesses to offer a specific wage threshold or to advance any other public policy purpose other than strictly economic development. Now, the good news is there is a tax credit on the state level. It's not city-based. It's not. We don't control this. But this may give you an idea of what I'm looking at. The state of Arkansas had created what's called the Advantage Arkansas Income Tax Credit. And in order to get that credit, the business must pay an average hourly wage to its workers that is equal to or greater than $14.94. So this kind of tax credit is what I had in mind when I first brought this up a few months ago. I wanted us to say, I wanted us to say, hey, we want you here, but we also want you to pay your workers well. And I think the Advantage Arkansas credit is a good approach. The thing is, the state of Arkansas has to initiate that agreement. The state of Arkansas has to meet with that business and say, okay, we can do this. The city and the county can't enter into the agreement, but we do have a say, is my understanding. Like with Owens Corning, about a year ago, the state of Arkansas entered into a tax agreement, a sales tax back agreement with Owens Corning, and the city council voted to endorse that tax back. So I guess what my question is, do we want to try to create something new that could be potentially difficult administratively, or do we want to go the route of using what already exists? So I just wanted some feedback, and I think I'd spoken to some extent with Ms. Danielle. If Danielle, would you mind approaching for just a moment?
Wait, if I understand it right, would we be considering taking tax money from our citizens who are making minimum wage or less than minimum wage and tips if they're in the food service industry? So we're considering taking their tax money and giving it to a corporation who may or may not need help to increase the wages of their workers. Is that, did I understand that right?
No, that's not.
That's
not.
so if a business is a certain size, we could
Sure.
take tax money and help offset the cost of your payroll. But if you're a smaller if you're a smaller business who employs a lesser number of people, would you still be willing to offer the same hard-earned citizens' tax money to offset their payroll?
Right. Well, then that's the thing, is if we created,
And if so, where do I sign up?
If we created something new, you would have to set parameters, very clear parameters on who would be eligible for it. It's part of my issue with the pilot approach, is that with the pilot agreements, it's strictly case by case, and I don't really know what that means as far as what kind of, when we decide who gets to enter into a pilot agreement and who doesn't, what criteria do we use?
That's normally agreed upon by the county judge most of the time.
There was,
And then, well, I mean, we're in the agreement also, but I mean, you have to think 92% of your tax goes to the school here.
sure.
Yeah, and so, and I will state the same thing that I stated the last time this was brought up. We need to start at home before we start working with anybody else. We've got employees that are, our employees right now as a city are underpaid, and so we need to be able to pay them a better wage before we start looking at someone else. But I'm with Mr. Westcott there. I don't see, if you say starting something new, the only money that we have is taxpayer dollars. So we don't have a magical fund that we can use other monies that are not taxpayer dollars. So you essentially, if you are saying start something new, unless you've got some other idea, which I'm not being able to see what you could be able to do that would incentivize someone without using taxpayer dollars.
I think that the work that we do with the chamber could benefit, like you said that several of the businesses that had opened recently, Owens Corning, had been beneficiaries of some of these existing programs.
Yes.
And those have benefited our community greatly and will continue to. And I think they are on the right track. I think that the groups that are involved with bringing those types of businesses higher wage paying are really doing a great job. And I think also that we're too early for this. I think once we have a higher tax base, if we wanted to have a small business grant or like these are citizens of Russellville started at home, these are people who we want them to stay here, we want them to graduate from tech, we don't want them to move off, and we have property that we also need to develop. And if X citizen that lives in this area and this property, I'm all for, grants and those types of things that are available, and us as a city being able to offer those types of programs.
I'm in favor of paying people more without a doubt.
Agreed.
Owens
Agreed.
Corning's going to come in and they're going to pay $40 an hour on
Yeah.
average.
So-
so Tabor Metal's going to come in and they're
Yeah.
going to pay a lot more. Go ahead, Mr. Bradley.
So, and that's the direction I was going with this. I didn't come before the council today with this, with the specific intention of creating something brand new. I wanted to certainly introduce it as a part of the bigger discussion, but I think looking at what already exists, there are tools that currently exist to do what we're wanting, what we would like to do.
And most every industry that's coming to town is utilizing all of those.
Sure.
Yeah, most every industry that's coming is utilizing the pilot, is utilizing whatever. Because right now the chamber's competing for 7 different projects. And so we're working with the chamber, working with Arkansas Economic Development, we're working with the county, we're working with myself, and so we're competing for all of those things. And so most all of those, unfortunately, there's just not a lot that you can do. Now you can incentivize the manufacturing a whole lot more than you can incentivize retail. Now in this next year's legislation, they're going to try to figure out where we can actually incentivize retail, because right now we don't have that ability to incentivize that like we would like to. So, and really honestly, you brought up $14 an hour a while ago. Most any industry that we're attracting right now is going to pay over $14 an hour. The only thing that's not going to pay $14 an hour is if you're going to open a restaurant or your local small business that is the locally owned mom and pop.
Which, if I recall, Owens Corning was offering I don't have it in front of me, but I recall Owens Corning was offering good salaries for its workers.
They're about $80,000 a
I'm
year,
not-
Judge.
So I'm not the least bit worried about them.
So one of the
I was going to
things.
say, we
Sorry,
call this
Danielle, we
housing
asked
That's
you
issue.
okay. So just to, like Mr. Bradley and I have had some conversations. I've also talked to Mr. George about wage growth. And I think one of the things that Mr. Bradley and I talked about was particularly growing wages with existing jobs and possibly thinking about, and a lot of those would probably be smaller businesses here, but incentives that we can do for small businesses. And I think that there are a lot of options. I don't think it necessarily has to be a tax incentive. We talked about like a utility incentive or something of that nature. I think there's a lot of different things. I don't know that there's a clear-cut answer right now, but I think it's a discussion we need to have. Really, we being Russellville we've grown so much, and economic development has come so far with Owens Corning, Tabor now expanding, all of these different industries coming in. It's fantastic. But we definitely want to see individual wages grow. And I think that's kind of what Mr. Bradley and I have talked about. And I know that might be difficult for small businesses, but that's, something that we've talked about and just to put out there to consider. On top of that, just, we do have a university. So that is a hotbed for entrepreneurship, and that might be another route that we think of. Just, startup kind of businesses or entrepreneurs, just helping them get started. I think that there's probably a lot of information we don't have at this point. From everything that I have researched, we've got about 40% of our citizens are close to like the $33,000 household median income. And I think that I think Mr. George and I talked about 49,000 was kind of a goal. So something to work toward. But, you know, again, I don't think there's a simple solution, but I do think we can put together some of the data because, you know, salary survey, I'm not sure, you know, again, we've got these fantastic industries that are paying a lot of money, and that's great, but we've also got some that aren't paying as much. And as much as we wish it weren't the case, we do have some people that are the breadwinners for their families working in minimum wage jobs. So it's just kind of, I feel like it's some food for thought at this point, and I don't know what the solution is going forward. I know, just again, Mr. Bradley and I have talked about it. I think there's a bigger discussion to be had. I don't know how to move forward, but I do think something that, you know, fits our local economy might be a little bit more effective here, and definitely something that doesn't just think about the industries or the businesses coming in, but the ones that exist here already. And maybe it's even, hey, if you pay above minimum wage, you know, great. Maybe we can offer you something. The other thing we talked about was maybe even just having a resolution that, you know, that kind of puts forth that this is something we as a city kind of prefer, that we welcome, and that kind of just creates a business-friendly, you know, but also a wage-friendly environment for our people. So there's just a lot of work we can do, and I'm here to help with it if I can.
Sure. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on item number 10?
I just want to reiterate, I agree with what the mayor said, that in a lot of ways it really starts with us being an example. And I know that I know that a lot of us here have stated, you know, publicly and in other areas that is a goal for us, is to increase the wages of the staff that work for our city, so that it is not an embarrassment to us, and so that we can also hold businesses in our community accountable for what they pay. So I agree. I think it starts with this.
Mayor, that appears to be the last on our agenda. I yield the floor back to you.
All right, thank you, sir. We will adjourn this, and we'll, it's oh, you're already that fast. You're that fast, all right, okay, so we're gonna go back in. All right, we will call this August 6th, Tuesday, 2024, agenda prep. So we will have Mr. Duval, is anybody going to come up on your behalf and give us a quick rundown?
Our sidewalk maintenance project, Sequoia Way's done. They're starting on South Phoenix now. The drainage project over at Ridgewood should have started this week, but there's a holdup on the pipe. They didn't have it made quick enough, so we're waiting on the pipe right now. So it's nothing we can do about that. Up by the high school, the crosswalk on South Knoxville, it is underway now, and it will be done before school starts. That's all I have.
I have two questions.
Okay.
That striping that we approved in finance, that includes the Hilltop Street?
You betcha.
Cool. Can you give me some, I guess, right now fiber's going all throughout the city.
Yes.
And we have companies from out of state and from within the state
Yes.
working on these projects. When they dig up, let's just say, for instance, my backyard.
Yep.
And they put their utility in the ground, and then they also have some access port.
Yep.
Does it have to be as close to what it looked like beforehand?
Yes. They're
Yes.
supposed, they're
All right.
supposed to put it back as good as it was.
Have
yes.
we gotten any complaints from citizens that it wasn't?
Yes, many.
Okay.
But we have two people that work on this daily. So when we get calls, or they actually go out and look, one particular employee does. But we get complaints, we go out and look at them, and then we contact whichever company it is, and we do get them to fix it back.
I figured that was the case.
Yes.
I had that happen in my backyard. There were no issues.
Yes.
But I assumed that,
They're doing I will say they're doing a lot better. So.
yeah, cool.
I don't know if you have noticed, but at the corner of, I think it's Louisville and L, I've had a couple folks point out to me that they actually cut into the street and took part of the asphalt of the road out, and then it's not the prettiest job in putting it back in, and we just did L, and so I mean I hate to see that really nice road then with their patch job.
I'm sure it was just a patch job for now. They just haven't done the finished product. But I will look into it.
Okay.
Definitely, since you told me about it, I'll definitely look at. And I'm sure Ben's probably aware of it, but we will definitely look into it. Yes, we just did that road. Yes, that's what usually happens. Unfortunately.
Director, South Tampa looks really good. Appreciate y'all's work.
Good. I think it turned out good, and I think everyone was pretty happy about it. So I've seen people using it already. So
There's
For what
lots
it's
of really
worth.
great projects going on around town, so I'm excited.
we got plenty going. Try to keep it that way.
The companies that did were working there in that neighborhood off South Tampa, extremely good job.
Yeah,
Very professional, very clean.
very good company.
in the way that they did their work and in everybody's lawns, and I appreciate their attention to detail.
Yes. We-
If you'll pass that along,
Yes, we're lucky. We got several good contractors in this area that does us really good work. So, thank you. And they're one of them. Yeah. Any more questions?
Thank you, Mr. Duval. All right, moving on. We will have something in the mayor's report. You guys may have seen on social media, we had an EMS crew that was selected EMS Crew of the Year at the state convention. That's a very high honor for our guys. They did a great job. I'll try to have a little bit of a narrative on that to tell you the story behind that as much as I possibly can without breaking any HIPAA violations. Well, I mean, it is, I mean, you can't share everything, so. Moving on, so item 1 will be a consideration of an ordinance accepting the dedication of easements to the city of Russellville, Arkansas for other purposes. This is to be the second and final reading on 800 block of South El Paso. That's just south of 8th Street. And then on new business, we're going to have a consideration of an ordinance amending the zoning code for the city of Russellville, Arkansas, ordinance 2443, and for other purposes. This is going to be sponsored by the Planning Commission. It's just amending the zoning code. And then consideration of an ordinance amending the land subdivision and development code for the city of Russellville, ordinance 2444. May have had an extra 4 in there, I don't know. And is unanimously recommended by the Planning Commission, just amending some things in the subdivision code. And then consideration of an ordinance rezoning certain realty in the city of Russellville, Arkansas for other purposes. This is located at 1500 to 1700 block of Russell Road. This is submitted by Barrett & Associates on behalf of PK Development. This is at the corner of Russell and Weir, if I remember right. This PK Development are the investors that actually just opened the Point on West Parkway Drive. So they're definitely coming here and they're investing in Russellville and trying to bring some things to us. So they bought that property there. And then item 4 is consideration of an ordinance accepting the dedication of the easements to the city of Russellville, Arkansas for other purposes. This is submitted by Robert Allert. This is unanimously recommended by the Planning Commission. This is off of Hilltop Drive on a residence. So I don't think there's any issues on that. Anybody have any questions? We do have Mr. Roy Reeves, who has asked to come and speak to the council tonight. Sir, if you'll approach the mic and if you will speak your name so the people at home know who you are, even though I've already said, and you have 3 minutes to speak to the council. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. My name is Roy Reeves. I think know most of you and look forward to discussing with you an issue that we have at the City Mall that's rather unsafe. Most of us might not be aware of how many We have 20 businesses in the city mall with over 150 employees. And if you've been on that property, you notice there are pothole after pothole. It is really unsafe. I've talked to the employees, I've talked to the businesses, and they have asked the owner, which is a Florida company out of Rivera Beach, Florida, asked them to repair it. And they just get no response. Well, that becomes an issue for the city because the city is responsible for providing fire service and police service. If we run a fire truck in there and it hits one of those holes, it's pretty expensive to repair. If we run police cars in there on an emergency, it could cause someone to get hurt or even wreck a car. So I think there's something that badly needs to be done. And I think there is a solution to how we can solve this problem. And I would encourage you to ask our city attorney to write them a letter describing the problem and ask that they repair it within 30 days. If they do not repair it in 30 days, which I doubt that they will, because the leasees have asked them to repair it and they will not. If they do not, then the city could repair them and put a lien on the property. That's within our rights as a city to always do that. It's been done several times before in the history. So it's something that, it's an eyesore, but we got a lot of eyesores around the city. We have a safety issue here, a safety issue for the employees there, and there were 150 employees. We have a safety issue for our policemen and our firemen and our equipment. So I think it's something that needs to be addressed, and we could address it and fix it. Now, hopefully, they'll come in and fix it. But whether they will or not, I don't know the answer to that. That's my suggestion to you, my encouragement for you. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I have talked to the two largest employers there, and they said they were thrilled. I told them I would do this, and they were thrilled. They said, we have not been able to get any response at all from them. They just ignore us, and the thought that you might do something, they were thrilled.
So there has been significant effort to reach out to the property owner.
The managers, I've talked to the managers of two of the businesses, they specifically had. I didn't go talk to the other 18 employee companies there.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. If no one has any questions. Thank you.
Is that something that we would be, that maybe Trey would be willing to do? Is there an issue with writing a letter and asking a business to?
Mr. Smith?
I could look at it, I mean, but this is private property, right?
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Right.
it's kind of a bigger difference too.
Okay.
I can look into it.
Okay.
Okay.
So Mr.
Cool.
Smith will look into that.
I mean, so like, how much would that even cost? Like, I know we're talking about paying it. and
Well,
then putting
several
a lien on
$100,000.
it.
It would be a $1
I mean,
million
it's gonna cost-
project.
it's
It'd be a $1
gonna
million
cost a
project.
lot.
Yeah.
Okay,
You know.
how they fix it would depend, the cost could be considerably different. One thing, if you fix the potholes, that's a temporary fix, but it solves the problem.
Agenda item now?
It solves the safety problems, and you don't have the issue for our city equipment. Now, if you went in there and totally overlaid it, you're talking about a very expensive thing. And this is what, truthfully, this is what most owners would do if they were local and wanted to maintain it. Now, if you want to just gut it and get all the goodie out of it you can, in a short-term run, you do what they're doing, you do nothing, and which is what's happening. I have the name of the owners and the people to contact.
Yeah,
the
if you would
name,
give that to me,
telephone
Mr. Reeves, I'd appreciate that.
number, and email address.
I would appreciate that. So,
Thank you.
all right. You good, Mr. Keller? Yes, sir. All right, I'll entertain a motion. Motion to adjourn. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out.